So yeah, the first faction I'm going to talk about is Cimmeria. Cimmeria is basically Greek and nomadic. They're located in modern day Crimea. Cimmeria is unique in that they can have missile superiority against factions that would have to rely on mercenaries. So for example, they can bring their own missile units and beat factions that rely on Cretan archers or Rhodian slingers or Balearic slingers. The use of horse archers for Cimmeria is very essential because you have bad melee cavalry. Therefore, most of your cavalry engagements is just hitting your opponent with a lot of arrows, and then following up with sit-ins and cav for the best outcome. Cimmeria's infantry is more defensive than offensive. Their only melee infantry is young axes, a low-tier axe unit that loses to hillmen. Your infantry can hold out long enough for rear charges and arrow volleys to go into the back of your opponents, but this isn't always easy, especially if your opponent still has cavalry. Therefore, just like the nomads, you will want to eliminate enemy cavalry as soon as possible to dominate with this faction. To summarize, Cimmeria has the most units from their secondary culture. They are worth a try if you like the nomads but want infantry. In my opinion, Cimmeria beats Parthia, but they lose to Syracuse, possibly. What does your typical Cimmerian army look like? Usually what happens is you'll bring a general, a hoplite general. The reason why I say this is because I usually bring noble horse archers because I find them more useful, but people like this general more because it's more sturdy, and I don't blame them. It's a pretty good general. Sometimes I'll bring Cimmerian noble infantry myself. They're just that reliable. For melee infantry, you only have young axes, which is your low tier melee unit, your low tier axe unit, really. They are pretty bad, but they do have solid melee defense. So sometimes you can get them to pay off, most of the times you won't. They also have really bad morale, so just keep that in mind. Spear-wise, you have steppe spearmen, which are pretty much the same as young axes, but they have a bonus of 30 versus cavalry. Most of the times you'll be relying on hoplites over Scythian hoplites. This is just because Scythian hoplites are better on the flanks. They're better as second line infantry. They're better, or second or third line infantry depending on your army selection. They're better against cavalry. They're better for pushing away cavalry. They're not good in melee against other infantry, and they're not the best units to hold. Missile infantry wise, you have steppe archers, which are a cheap second line missile infantry unit. These guys are best behind your lines because if they take a lot of slinger fire, they're going to rout very quickly. Their morale is only 20. Just keep that in mind. Cimmerian heavy archers, however, are front line for sure. These guys are basically the same as steppe archers, but they have better shots per minute. They also have 35 armor, 55 health, and 55 morale, which is really good. They also wield the anti-cavalry spear, which gives them a 30 bonus versus cavalry if they can get into melee with them. So after they've used all their arrows, or if they're getting charged at, they still can do a lot of damage. Shot cav, steppe lancers, not a big deal. Pretty useful for hammer and anvil tactics. Melee cav, citizen cav, again, you won't want to use these guys until you've used enough arrows to defeat your opponent. Missile cav, you have the basic nomadic horse archer roster, steppe archers, armored horse archers, and noble horse archers. Noble horse archers are the best in melee and in missile fights. I usually use armored horse archers because they're the core of the nomads. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the nomads. Your typical army does consist of hoplites. Most of the times I use hoplites over Scythian hoplites. Usually I don't even have Scythian hoplites. I don't even bring militia hoplites. If I were to ever bring steppe spearmen, I'd know it's a waste. Usually steppe spearmen are a bad idea to bring, especially if you're going up against the nomads. When you're playing against the nomads, you just have to stick together as an army. Sometimes I'll bring like 2 noble infantry, and my front line will either be 3 Cimmerian heavy archers, because most of the time you'll want to win in missile fights. because that's where you shine at. Step archers, I'd bring 4, have them behind my men. Shot cav, I'd probably bring 2, but like I said, most of my power would go to armored horse archers. That's pretty much it for the Cimmerians, and in 10 seconds I will go right into Pergamon.